Hey everyone, today we're diving deep into customer segmentation. You mentioned needing to really get this concept for like a project you're working on, maybe even like a big meeting coming up. We've got you covered. Don't worry about it. We've got lecture notes. We've got cutting edge research, all that good stuff. So are you ready to like unlock the secrets of connecting with the right customers?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Okay, so first things first, what exactly is customer segmentation? I feel like it sounds very technical, but I feel like it's probably more common than we think.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It is something we see every single day. Just think about it. Like walking into a grocery store, they don't just throw food on shelves randomly.
Right.
They organize it into sections, produce dairy snacks, all that stuff. And that's essentially what businesses are doing with customer segmentation. They're organizing their customers into distinct aisles based on shared characteristics.
Okay, I like that analogy. That's a good way to put it. So instead of like yelling into the void, businesses are having more targeted conversations. But why go through all this trouble? What's the benefit of this?
Well, imagine trying to sell skateboards to everyone. Grandmas, toddlers, everyone. It just wouldn't work right. Customer segmentation helps businesses really get laser focused. By understanding their different customer groups, they can tailor their products, their marketing, even their pricing to appeal to specific needs and desires, which leads to happier customers and, of course, more sales.
Okay, that makes sense. Working smarter, not harder. Now, our sources actually outline 5 main types of customer segments. So let's dive into these customer aisles.
Let's do it. So let's start with the most familiar one, the mass market. This is where companies target a broad audience with products or services that pretty much have universal appeal. Think things like basic groceries, smartphones, utilities. Everyone needs these, regardless of their background or lifestyle.
Right, those make sense. But then there's like the niche market, which sounds a lot more exclusive.
Exactly. Niche markets cater to very specific needs and desires. Think about luxury watches, high-end gaming PCs, specialized medical equipment. These companies aren't trying to appeal to everyone. They're very laser-focused on a select group of customers who are willing to pay a premium for those specialized products and services.
Interesting. So it's like the difference between a massive supermarket chain and a small artisanal bakery. Okay, what about segmented market? That sounds like it falls somewhere in between.
It does. Segmented markets recognize that even within a larger market, there are subgroups with slightly different needs. Imagine a bank offering specialized accounts and financial products tailored to students, working professionals, retirees. They're all customers of the bank, but they're in different stages of life with unique financial needs.
Smart. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay, this next one sounds very ambitious. Diversified market.
Now we're talking. This is where companies really spread their wings. They serve completely unrelated customer groups, often with entirely different product lines. The classic example here is Amazon. They started with books, but now they sell everything from groceries to cloud computing services.
They have really mastered that approach for sure.
Oh.
Okay, last but not least, we have multi-sided market. This one sounds very intriguing.
This one highlights the interconnected nature of many businesses today. Multi-sided markets involve serving 2 or more interdependent customer groups. Think about Uber. They need both drivers and riders for their platform to function, or Airbnb connecting hosts and travelers. These businesses thrive by creating value for multiple groups simultaneously.
Wow, that's really cool. It shows how understanding these relationships is crucial for success. But how do businesses actually figure out which aisle each customer belongs in? This can't just be guesswork.
Right. You are absolutely right. It's not about throwing darts at a board. There are actual methods for segmenting customers, and one classic approach that's still incredibly powerful is called RFM analysis. Have you heard of this?
RFM. It rings a bell, but I could definitely use a refresher.
Yeah. So RFM stands for recency frequency and monetary value. It's basically a way to quantify your customer's value based on their buying behavior.
Okay, break that down for me.
All right, so recency looks at how recently a customer made a purchase. Someone who just bought something yesterday is probably more engaged than someone who hasn't shopped with you in a year. Frequency tracks how often a customer buys from you. Someone who buys weekly is likely more valuable than someone who buys once a year. And finally, monetary measures how much they spend. Big spenders are usually a segment you want to pay close attention to.
So it's kind of like a ranking system for your customers. Like high scores on all 3 of those factors mean they're VIPs.
Exactly. RFM analysis helps you identify your most valuable customer groups, so you can focus your efforts on keeping them happy and engaged.
That's really clever.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get it now. But our sources also mention something called cutting-edge clustering algorithms, which sounds pretty high-tech. Is this where things get futuristic?
This is it. This is where we're moving beyond simple metrics and into the realm of artificial intelligence. These sophisticated algorithms can analyze massive amounts of data and group customers in ways we couldn't even imagine before. Think about all the data companies collect: purchase history, browsing behavior, demographics, even social media activity. These algorithms can find subtle patterns and connections within the sea of information, revealing hidden customer segments.
Okay, so these algorithms are like digital detectives, sniffing out clues to uncover these hidden groups of customers.
That is a great way to put it. They're like having a superpowered magnifying glass to help us understand our customers on a deeper level.
I'm ready to put on my detective hat. So tell me more about these algorithms. What are some of the big names in the game?
There are quite a few of them, but let's just focus on a few key players. First up, we've got K-means clustering. Imagine you're trying to open 3 ice cream shops in a city. You wouldn't just place them randomly, right? You would want them strategically positioned to serve the most customers. K-means clustering does something similar with data. It groups data points. In this case, your customers, based on their proximity to centroids, which are like the ideal locations for your ice cream shops.
So K-means helps businesses figure out where their customer hotspots are. That's pretty cool. What else is there?
Next up is the Gaussian mixture model, or GMM for short. It's a bit more complex, but it's great at finding subtle patterns that simpler methods might miss. It assumes that data points within a cluster follow a normal distribution, which helps it uncover hidden relationships and group customers based on underlying similarities.
So it's like a detective looking for hidden clues.
Exactly. The GMM can sift through all that data and uncover those aha moments, the connections and patterns that might not be immediately obvious to the human eye.
Okay, I like it. So what other detective tools do we have?
Let's talk about dbScan, which is short for density-based spatial clustering of applications with noise. It's a mouthful, I know, but it's a powerful algorithm that groups data points based on their density and proximity. Imagine you're looking at a star chart. Some areas are densely packed with stars, while others have just a few scattered here and there. dbScan identifies these clusters based on how tightly packed the data points are and how far apart they are from other clusters.
So it's like mapping out constellations in the customer universe.
Okay.
That's a pretty cool visual.
Yeah.
Any other heavy hitters in the algorithm lineup?
We have 2 more. First, there's BIRCH, short for Balanced Iterative Reducing and Clustering Using Hierarchies. It's a workhorse designed to handle massive data sets, which is perfect for today's world of big data. It can crunch billions of data points and still find meaningful clusters.
Wow, that's impressive. You can handle the data equivalent of the entire Milky Way.
Okay, what's the last one? The final one is agglomerative clustering. This method starts with each data point as its own individual cluster, and then gradually merges them together based on similarity. Imagine starting with a giant pile of Legos and slowly sorting them into color-coded buckets. Agglomerative clustering works in a similar way, systematically building up clusters until it reaches the desired number of groups.
So it's like a process of elimination, finding the best fit for each customer based on their unique characteristics.
Exactly. It's a very methodical approach to finding those perfect customer groupings.
Wow, that's quite the lineup of algorithms. Businesses today have some serious firepower when it comes to understanding their customers. But how do they know which algorithm is the right one to use? It's like having a whole toolbox full of gadgets, but not knowing which one to pick for the job.
That's a great question. And the researchers in our source material actually tackled this very problem. They compared these different clustering algorithms using a metric called the silhouette score.
Okay, silhouette score, what's that?
Think of it like this. When you group things together, you want each group to be as distinct and well-defined as possible, right? You don't want blurry lines between your groups. The silhouette score measures how clearly separated the clusters are. A higher score means the algorithm did a better job of creating distinct, well-defined groups.
So it's like a way to judge how crisp the customer groupings are.
Exactly. And the researchers found that combining principal component analysis, or PCA for short, with a Gaussian mixture model, that's our GMM detective, achieved the highest silhouette score.
Interesting. So it was a tag team effort that took home the trophy. What does that actually mean in a practical sense? Why is this combination so effective?
Well, PCA helps simplify the data by reducing its dimensionality. Imagine trying to organize a room full of stuff. It would be overwhelming, right? But if you could somehow condense all that stuff into a few key boxes, it would be much easier to manage. That's what PCA does with data. It finds the most important patterns and compresses the information into a more manageable format. Then the GMM steps in, armed with its pattern recognition superpowers, and does an amazing job of identifying clear and distinct customer groups, within this simplified data set.
Okay, so simplify the data first,
Yeah.
then use GMEM's detective skills to find those patterns. It's like a dynamic duo. But with all this talk about algorithms and data, I have to ask, why should I care? How does this apply to the real world? And more importantly, my upcoming project?
That's the million-dollar question. All of this might sound very technical, but it has profound implications for how businesses operate and how they connect with their customers. And it's especially relevant for your project. Let's imagine.
Wait. Before we get to my project, can you give me a couple of concrete examples of how businesses are using all this customer segmentation magic? I'm starting to get the big picture, but some real-world examples would be super helpful.
Absolutely. Let's say you're a clothing retailer and you've identified a customer segment that's particularly interested in sustainable fashion. You can use this knowledge to...
Hold on. I just realized we haven't even touched on the business model canvas, which was mentioned in our source material. Does they say customer segmentation is like the foundation of the whole canvas?
You're absolutely right. We got so caught up in the different types of segments and these fascinating algorithms that we almost forgot about the bigger picture.
Okay, so before we get into those real-world examples,
Yeah.
let's back up for a second and talk about the business model canvas. What is it exactly, and why is customer segmentation so crucial to the whole thing?
Okay, so the business model canvas, it's basically like a blueprint for a successful business. It's a visual tool that helps you map out all the key components of your business, like what value you're offering, how you're reaching your customers, your key resources, and of course your customer segments.
So it's like a roadmap for building a thriving business.
Exactly. And the reason why customer segments are so foundational is because they really impact every other aspect of your business model. Like once you know who your target customers are, it's much easier to figure out what they value, how to reach them, what kind of relationships you need to build with them, and ultimately how to generate revenue.
I mean, it's like building a house. You need a strong foundation before you can start adding the walls on the roof.
Exactly. Now, you were asking for some real-world examples of how businesses are using customer segmentation. So let's go back to that clothing retailer. We were talking about who's identified a segment that is really passionate about sustainable fashion. You know, they can use this knowledge to develop a line of eco-friendly clothing made from recycled materials or organic cotton. They can promote these products through targeted ads on social media platforms that are frequented by environmentally conscious consumers. They could even partner with influencers who advocate for sustainability.
That's a great example. By understanding that specific segment, they can create products and marketing campaigns that really resonate with their target audience.
Exactly. Another example could be a streaming service. They might identify a segment of viewers who primarily watch documentaries, and they can then recommend similar documentaries. Curate collections focused on specific historical periods or social issues, and even acquire the rights to some really niche documentaries that would appeal to that specific audience.
So it's all about using the data to create a more personalized experience for each customer segment.
Precisely. And by doing so, businesses can increase customer satisfaction, foster loyalty, and ultimately drive revenue growth.
This is really making me rethink my entire approach to my project. I'm already brainstorming ways to apply these concepts. But are there any downsides or potential pitfalls to be aware of when it comes to customer segmentation? It almost sounds too good to be true.
That's a great question. It's important to remember that customer segmentation, like any powerful tool, needs to be used thoughtfully and strategically. One potential pitfall is over-segmentation.
Over-segmentation. What do you mean by that?
So it can be really tempting to divide your market into smaller and smaller segments, but if you go too far, you can end up with groups that are just too niche to be profitable. Imagine a restaurant creating a separate menu for each individual customer based on their dietary preferences and taste buds. It would just be a logistical nightmare, and it wouldn't make financial sense.
Right. So it's about finding that sweet spot, the right level of granularity where the segments are meaningful, but still large enough to justify those targeted efforts.
Exactly. You need to strike that balance between creating distinct segments and ensuring that they're commercially viable.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Are there any other potential challenges that we should be mindful of?
Yeah, another important consideration is keeping your segments up to date. Customer behavior isn't static. It's constantly evolving people's needs, their preferences. Lifestyles change over time, and if you rely on outdated segmentation data, your marketing efforts might miss the mark.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Definitely not. It's an ongoing process. You need to regularly revisit your segmentation model, analyze new data, and make adjustments as needed to keep up with your ever-evolving customers.
Gotcha. I'm taking notes. Anything else I should be aware of as I dive into customer segmentation for my project?
Yeah, one more thing to consider is the potential for bias in your data. If the data that you're using to segment your customers is skewed or incomplete, it can lead to inaccurate or even discriminatory outcomes. For example, if your data primarily comes from online sources, you might inadvertently exclude segments of your customer base who are less digitally connected.
That's a really important point. So it's not just about crunching the numbers. It's also about understanding the limitations of the data and being mindful of potential biases.
Exactly. You need to approach your data with a critical eye and make sure you're not inadvertently perpetuating harmful stereotypes or excluding certain groups. Always double check your assumptions and make sure your segmentation strategy is inclusive and equitable.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful. You've given me a lot to think about as I embark on this customer segmentation journey for my project. But before we wrap up, I'm curious, what are your key takeaways from all this? What stands out to you as the most important things to remember about customer segmentation?
That's a great question. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that customer segmentation is just this incredibly powerful tool. For understanding your audience and tailoring your offerings to meet their specific needs and desires, it's about moving beyond the one-size-fits-all approach and recognizing that your customers are not a homogeneous mass. They are individuals with unique characteristics, motivations, and behaviors. And by understanding these differences, you can create more targeted and effective marketing campaigns, develop products and services that truly resonate, and ultimately build stronger, more profitable relationships with your customers.
I couldn't agree more. It's all about connecting with the right people in the right way at the right time. And it's really amazing how technology, those powerful algorithms we discussed, are enabling us to do this with more precision and personalization than ever before.
It is an exciting time to be working in this field. But even with all these advancements, it's crucial to remember that technology is just a tool. The real magic happens when we combine data-driven insights with human understanding and empathy.
What do you mean by that?
It's so easy to get caught up in the numbers and the algorithms. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with people. And we need to remember that behind every data point is a human being with their own unique story, their own hopes, dreams, and challenges. And by approaching customer segmentation with empathy and a genuine desire to connect, we can create experiences that are not only effective, but also meaningful and human-centered.
That's a beautiful sentiment. It's not just about crunching the numbers. It's about understanding the people behind the data.
Precisely. And that's what makes customer segmentation so much more than just a marketing tactic. It's a way to build bridges, foster connections, and create a more personalized and engaging experience for everyone.
Okay, this has been an incredibly thought-provoking conversation. You've given me so much to consider as I apply these concepts to my project. And I know you always have one final thought to leave me pondering. So what's the parting wisdom you'd like to share today?
As we become more and more adept at segmenting customers and tailoring our offerings to their specific needs, I think it's important to consider the potential long-term impacts of this whole trend.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. I hadn't really thought about that.
Yeah, imagine a world where businesses can predict our preferences with incredible accuracy, where every interaction, every message, every product recommendation is just perfectly aligned with our individual desires.
It almost sounds utopian, like a world without spam or irrelevant advertising.
Right, it could be. But it also raises some pretty important questions.
Like what kind of questions?
Well, for example, if we're constantly being catered to, surrounded by products and services that perfectly match our existing tastes, does that limit our exposure to new ideas and experiences?
That's a really good point. It's like living in an echo chamber,
Right.
only hearing the things that we already agree with.
Exactly. And if we're not being challenged or exposed to different perspectives, does it kind of stifle our growth and creativity?
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's
Yeah.
like the difference between exploring a vast, diverse forest and staying within the confines of a well-manicured garden.
Right. And another question to consider is who benefits the most from this hyper-personalization?
That's a tough one. I mean, on the one hand, consumers are definitely getting a more tailored and convenient experience. But on the other hand, businesses are gaining a much deeper understanding of our behaviors and motivations.
And with that knowledge comes power, the power to influence our choices, shape our desires, and ultimately drive our consumption.
It makes you wonder if we're really in control of our decisions, or if we're being subtly manipulated by these algorithms that are designed to maximize profits.
It's a question that definitely deserves serious consideration. As we embrace the benefits of customer segmentation, we really need to be mindful of the potential downsides and ensure that these technologies are being used ethically and responsibly.
Totally. It's not just about maximizing profits. It's about creating a society where technology empowers individuals, not exploits them.
Well said. And ultimately, I believe that customer segmentation, when it's used thoughtfully and ethically, can really be a force for good.
How so?
Well, think about it. By understanding our customers' needs and preferences, we can create products and services that truly improve their lives.
You know what? I see your point.
Yeah.
It's not just about selling more stuff. It's about using data to make people's lives better.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just products and services. Customer segmentation can also be used to personalize education, improve healthcare, and even connect people with social causes that they care about.
Wow, that's really inspiring.
So yeah, there are definitely potential risks and challenges associated with customer segmentation, but there's also just this tremendous potential for positive impact.
This conversation has been such an eye-opener. I feel like I'm going into my project with a much deeper understanding of the complexities and nuances of customer segmentation.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And just remember, it's not just about the data, it's about the people behind the data.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thanks again for this amazing deep dive.
My pleasure. Always enjoy exploring these topics with you.
Until next time.